Welcome to Copilot and Coffee. I'm Christian Falloon. I'm the CRO here at Netcom Learning, and I'm super excited to be here with you today. And Peter DeTender, Peter is a lead technical trainer from Microsoft. And Peter, it's great to see you. How are you today?
Yeah, Chris, I'm doing fine. What about you?
I'm doing extremely well. It's been a while since you and I had a conversation. I know before we dove a little bit into the subject we're going to talk about today, Copilot, but what are you seeing out there? It seems like they're just crazy and exciting right now. So much is changing in the landscape.
Well, I would say, yes. Copilot has been around for about 2 years and a half now, and every day it's changing. It's getting like smarter, more intelligent. More customers are using it. I'm teaching it more and more than ever. So, pretty excited about sharing that experience with you as well.
That's fantastic. And speaking of teaching, so as a technical trainer with Microsoft, what does that look like day in the life? Tell me more.
Well, so I always describe it as the easiest job title within Microsoft, where as a technical trainer, guess what I do? I do technical training, as you know. And we started with the program about 6 years and a half ago, and it was all about training customers, like top partners and customers, on the Azure platform, and initially even more towards getting them certified. But then over the years, it shifted away from traditional or multi-day classes, not always five, but 4 or 5 day classes. We're now the last 2 years, it heavily shifted to like 1 day topics, a lot more focused. And obviously, no surprise, I would say Microsoft AI solutions and Copilot pretty high on the radar. Now, I got a question for you as well, because and obviously, I know what you're doing, but maybe our audience doesn't always know. So I know what a CEO is doing. I know what a CTO is doing. I know what a CSO is doing. But what's a CRO doing?
So CRO is a fancy phrase to say I'm a person that literally tries to spend as much time as I can with customers. I'm always trying to get in front of individuals, whether they're people in the market, to understand their problems, their challenges. And for us and everybody here at Netcom Learning, it's about solving those challenges and those problems through learning, through skilling, through education. And that's literally what I do every single day. If I spend 10, 12 hours a day with customers, we learn so much. And I am better to every one of our customers. So great.
And like, do you use Copilot for any of that?
Oh, absolutely, Peter. Copilot to me has been a dramatic time saver just in how I interact with my customers. Whether I'm in a Teams meeting and I'm using the functionality to it, or I'm trying to make a quick edit to a PowerPoint slide, Copilot has saved me so much time that gets me, customer facing even more so than ever before. But that's a good overarching question. Like, how would you describe, Microsoft 365 Copilot? Like for somebody that's not unfamiliar, like where do you want to take it? How do you want to tell the
Mhm.
story about it?
Well, there's, I would say, a few things, and you touched already on like the Microsoft 365 Copilot, but let's take a step back and just positioning maybe a bit what Copilot is about. So, because we got like in meantime, I think close to 20 different Copilots in different
Wow.
Microsoft products. Um, so in short, Copilot is a generative AI solution. Like if you think about ChatGPT, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that. It's almost like the Microsoft version of like what ChatGPT is about. And we got quite some alignment, but also some differences. Where the alignment, I would say, is we're using OpenAI as the provider of the large language model. And that large language model, think of it as a massive library that's used by a machine learning backend. It got trained on public internet information. So that's where you got this whole prompting mindset coming in, where you can ask questions in your natural language in just the way you would talk to your partner, your colleagues, maybe customers. And all that information is now like interpreted by that prompting, sent off to that large language model, and you get a response back. So that's in short how it works.
I do have
Yeah,
one
cool
question
stuff.
for you, right? So Peter, you spend so much time in front of customers, right? And talking about Copilot, what what really is that one thing that gets you the most excited about it?
Only one.
I
um,
know it's hard, but that one thing.
Well, for me, it's that like low level entry to use it. Like you don't need to go through manuals. Everyone can use it. There's always a use case. And it starts with that natural language. Ask a question, and if it's not 100% spot on, then rephrase it. Like I always joke about it in my trainings. Like it's like talking to a 5-year-old kid, where if you would ask it like, hey, what do you want for food at 7 in the morning? It's gonna tell you pancakes, candy, mac and cheese. But then you go like, hey, you cannot have it because it's breakfast time. And then probably the 5-year-old is trying to be smart and like, yeah, but you didn't say it was breakfast. That's like, and that's exactly what generative AI is to me, where the more specific you are, typically the better the response is. But the like you mentioned, right, the unlimited use cases, like summarize documents, create PowerPoints, write code if you're a developer, or do something in Azure. Like it's just brilliant. That's what makes it amazing for me.
Your statement there, that low level of entry, that brings me back to so many conversations that I've had with customers where organizations are attempting to roll out hundreds and thousands of licenses, but they're I think they're sometimes getting caught up of knowing that, hey, the first step can be a very easy step. The first collection of use cases can be a very simple use case. And as those use cases start stacking on top of each other, that's really where the productivity gain is. Maybe there's 3, 5, 7 things a person might do over the course of a week multiple times. That's saving hours. And so you're right. It is exciting to see that.
Could I maybe just show you how it works? Because I think it's one of those tools that you just need to see in action to really get the idea how it works. Shall we do that for our viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And as you're pulling up, before we continue, it's really important. I just want to quickly announce to all our viewers, any questions that you may have, please take a minute to put that in the question pane of your GoToWebinar window. And in case you're watching this on our live stream on YouTube or LinkedIn, put your questions in the comments. Our team's going to make sure they try to address as many questions as possible. Also, please note, our team is going to display some Microsoft training courses as we speak on the screen. So you're going to get a chance to see some really exciting giveaways and some offers to attend some of these sessions. So please make sure you're following along, because there's going to be a lot of great info provided to you. So Peter, take it away. Love to see.
Good. So I'm going to share my screen, and then what you see here. So what I did is just connecting to copilot.microsoft.com. I mean, every now and then URLs don't need to be super complex, right? So
It's a
I'm
very
logged
familiar
on.
screen. I'm on that screen many times a day.
You use this every day, right? So I'm logged
I
on
do.
with my Peter at Outlook, so it's my personal account, and I can start asking questions. Now, it's not immediately business related, but I would say, imagine like in like maybe a family setup, you could ask anything about, hey, help me creating a recipe for my dinner tonight, or anything about, let's say I need to help my kids with some schoolwork, and I'm going to ask some questions about, I don't know, elephants. So we could ask a question, what can you tell me about elephants? Similar to like me talking to my wife, like, hey, what do you know about this topic or that topic? Like in just a split second, right? It comes back with information. So out of Microsoft, we describe this as you're no longer searching for information, but it's like really finding the information you're asking for. Now, this whole scenario is what we call prompting. So I ask a question, and it's not all that specific. So we could probably spend half a day on what the good prompt should look like. But in the end, it's, I would say for now, don't overthink it. Just ask a question in your natural language. It's going to connect to that large language model, and it provides you with an answer. Now, this is, I would say, pretty cool, pretty obvious, but we could actually take it one step further. Like, how many human beings do I need to win a tug of war? From an Asian, whoops, a little typo, from an Asian elephant, because now I learned that there's different elephants. Like you got Asian ones, you got African ones, and all that in again, just a split second. So what it's going to do now is running some backwards calculations where it's like, oh, you probably need 17 healthy adult men. And that's actually okay and it's cool, but sometimes it's like, well, but what if it's not 17 men? What if it's females, right? That's where I need to be more specific in my prompting. I could do something else, like we can upload attachments. And what we can do here is, for example, pulling up a document, and I could go like analyze the document and show the financial information. Now you can see there's a few typos in there, but natural language will cover it. Now, technically, this was one of my electricity bill invoices from like 3 years ago, and it's analyzing that information. So it recognizes the electricity company, the bill date like 2 years ago, and I asked for financial information. Everything else, like the, I don't know, the terms and conditions that you typically get in those contracts, it's not even pulling it up. It's in the PDF file, but I don't need to see them. One other example that I have is analyzing images. So let me move this out a bit, and it's always challenging to think about where are my images, where do I store them? Well, we're gonna find it. It's one of the best images ever. What do you see in this picture, Chris?
A pretty good looking cheeseburger.
It's a cheeseburger. How do you know it's a cheeseburger?
I can clearly see cheese on it.
Sounds good. So let's see what Copilot brings back. I gotta say it's a lot more detailed than what you provided.
I would think so.
The way it works is recognizing the color of the beef patty. It's still cheese, so I guess you got some alignment there. But that's just how AI worked in the past, like object detection, recognizing items in an image. But even better, based on your description. So that's, hey, Copilot, you gave me a pretty detailed description. Generate a new image. Because in the end, that image, I mean, it's just something that I grabbed from the internet. It's not the best quality. But in how many scenarios do you need to like bring in information, like bring in cool looking images for like, again, maybe family projects, maybe later on business context, where I think I'm going to show you how this works in like a PowerPoint alike scenario. But you can do the exact same thing. Now it's going to take a little bit, but then maybe I can bring it back in a couple of seconds to show you what kind of image actually gets generated. Now you touched on the M365 version, right? So I'm going to stop sharing for a second because otherwise everyone's paying attention to the burger and not to what we're talking about. But so you touched on Copilot, large language model, web grounding, as we technically would call it, like pull up information from that large language model. But then obviously the next question is like, what's the difference between just Copilot and M365? So M365 is like the Office backend, which for us means you get access to corporate information. You got OneDrive, you got SharePoint, you got Teams, and you got email. When you use your M365 Copilot, in the exact same example as what I showed you before, it's now allowing you to use that exact same concept, running prompts, asking questions, natural language, large language model based. But then it's also adding what I guess most organizations are looking for, and that's that security aspect of it, where it's now no longer just a web grounding, like pulling information from the large language model, but it's now giving you what we describe as enterprise grade security data protection, where Copilot is running in your user mode, which means that out of Copilot in M365, you're going to run prompts like write me a business plan, find me information about this kind of customer, combine information from different projects in like a new offering. And as long as your user account, your Chris at Netcom has access to the data, your Copilot will have access to it as well. But it's not exposing any information that you would not be able to see as just the Chris employee within the company. Does that make sense?
It does, and in the conversations that I have, corporate security, data security is constantly coming up amongst leaders. And so hearing you say, hey, that Copilot 365, that creates that level of security that organizations, are looking for and require. Because as users, sometimes we can be a little bit, take some missteps and really upload some information into our Copilot environment that we don't want to get out, right? We don't want competitors to see or others to see.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, you can imagine that I like talking about it, but why not showing you what the difference looks like, but also identical looks like between just that Copilot version and then shifting to the M365 part of it.
Yeah,
So
that'd
first
be
of all,
great
we
to see
got,
the two. That'd be wonderful to see the two differences. Oh, there's that cheeseburger again. It's looking
look
a
at
lot
that. That's
better.
like high quality, real world, I don't know, professional photographing, right, to create that burger. So I just love this. Now I'm going to shift to my other browser, and this is my official Microsoft account. So I need to be a bit careful what I'm exposing, but nothing really wrong with that. But I got an example that might not always immediately reflect like, hey, why should we use this? But what I'm going to do is showing you the difference, what we touched on, that data security grounding, like where is the information coming from? And that's the difference between web and work. Up here, you see the interaction with the large language model, where it's OpenAI GPT. I'm not going to switch to 5. It's like only 2, 3 weeks ago released, and it might be a bit too new, so I'm not going to do that. And then up here, you also have this little green shield, and that's like enterprise protection. If you follow that link, if you already have M365 access, it's going to send you to our Learn platform and giving you like a huge amount of details on the data protection. And if you don't have it integrated yet, like out of Microsoft Purview, like data compliance tooling, basically, that would give you a lot of details. So I'm going to run a prompt. I switch to web, which means bring in information from the public internet. I'm going to run a prompt. Can you share the highlights of the Microsoft Financial Report 2024? Why? Because 25 is not published yet and 23 is too long ago. So let's do 2024. Now, what it's going to do here is, again, analyzing the prompt and providing a response. Now, it's not doing an internet search. It's basically recognizing the keywords and using that large language model to formulate the answer. And I think it's doing a pretty powerful, good job. So there's obviously financial information, a little bit about new technology, some impact with partnerships, and it just keeps going. Security highlights, stock performance, and then eventually, that's the cool part, it also gives us the sources. Where now you can see that it's using obviously our Microsoft public website, but also other public resources. You probably heard about like hallucination. If you ever did something with generative AI, it's like, oh, where's this answer coming from? It's not 100% spot on. And again, it's because it's not 100% spot on scenario. It's analyzing the question and it's providing the closest statistical correct answer. And that's where you have a few deviations. So to help, you can always go back to the source and you can review all the details yourself. So it created the highlights, whatever that means. It's my natural language. I could again be a lot more specific. But in the end, I'm like, well, this is all cool, but if I need more details, I know immediately where to go to. I don't have to scan like 50, I don't know, URLs and then finding out that half of them are like sponsored links, right? So we're all done with that. And it's a pretty detailed report where now I can go back, I can switch to work, and I should have copied my prompt, but let's do, can you share the highlights of Microsoft Financial Report 2024. Now you might go, okay, Peter, what's the difference here? Well, the difference is that now by default, it's going to look into my accessible as a Microsoft employee, my accessible corporate backend, OneDrive, SharePoint, email, and team conversations. Obviously, the outcome of this might be slightly different because as a Microsoft employee, I might get access to more like internal information that we might not have published publicly yet. but the overall structure is almost the same. The big difference is that now it's looking into internal information. Now you can see that we still get access to public sources, but the baseline is internal resources. And again, these are the ones that I can access even without using Copilot. If I know where to find this in my, I don't know, 500 websites in SharePoint, I could probably pull up that Word document, the PowerPoint files, the email conversations. That's really how it works.
I have to say, I love how it just puts those citations front and center, right? So as you're getting more information, that summary, to see that information and see where it comes from, that always gives me confidence. So that's a wonderful functionality.
Good. Now, we talked about Copilot, so the personal edition, if you want. Talked about M365. Big difference, that graph to connect to your corporate backend, connecting with all that data security in mind. But did you hear about agents?
Oh, customers and individuals in the industry are always asking about agents. And even here at Netcom, we talked a little bit this. We've created our own agents here that help have employees, get access to some specific documentation a bit quicker and a bit faster. But yeah, the agents that you can build with Copilot Studio, it's exciting. So many organizations are looking to adopt agents on different levels. Like, where do you think that future is going to be the next year, 2, 3, even beyond that? What does that look like?
Well, I mean, 6 months ago, we didn't even talk about agents. Like, everyone was so into prompting and maybe comparing different language models and maybe shifting technologies a little bit. But then all of a sudden, it's like, well, everyone understands prompting, and that's not cool enough anymore. It's maybe not the best, most optimized way to use the technology anymore. And that's where the whole agents came in. But we're still at, I would say, the forefront of what it can do. But now you can actually create agents using prompts. You can create agents using an agent. So in the near future, you're going to have agents building agents and agents communicating with agents. So a lot is going to happen in that domain, I think.
It's just fantastic to think about that, right? The fantastic what that future may be when it comes to agents. And you're right, 6 months ago it was just a concept and idea, but just hear you say agents, creating agents, and then managing agents. Wow, that's leaps and bounds forward.
I think it's mind blowing. Now, we're not going to talk too much about Studio because we might need to watch over time a little bit, and we need to answer those questions from the attendees as well. But I'm going to do a quick example, like one of my personal scenarios where I'm using a pretty easy Copilot agent in M365 that's actually performing 2 tasks. So what it does, and I'll share my screen again. So my scenario in short is, I told you I'm creating or at least recording video sessions, like video training material. And every now and then, so the starting point there is, just going to clear my screen a bit. So the starting point is that as a trainer, every now and then we got the opportunity, like here being close to Redmond, to go into the studios, record video training. And we try to make it available to everyone across the globe. But it starts with the trainer, it starts with the content. And then we need to create a summary of like, this is what the training is about, to publish it on the website. But then also the next step is making it available to other trainers to do the re-recording of the same content in different languages, which could be Spanish, I don't know, French, German, different Asian languages. That's what we're doing. Now, to make sure that there is quite some consistency, since I'm the starting point, you could say in the Redmond Studios, I need to create that document. I need to summarize it, and then I need to ask for a translation. 2 different tasks, which were before Copilot pretty time consuming, and I created an agent. So what's the catch with the agent? It's what I describe as the repetitive tasks where you start using that prompting, but then you find yourself running through the same prompts over and over. If you recognize like, hey, Pete, I know what you're talking about, that's the perfect spot to move that into an agent. If you got M365 Copilot, you can immediately create agents. I'm not going to walk too much through the technical details, how to create it, but it's almost like using prompts to create an agent. So what I did here, I called it a PDT, so that's Peter Detender Summary Translation Agent, where in the manual approach, you would go like, oh, here's a document. I showed you, you can upload documents and then asking, can you please summarize this? And then the next prompt is, can you please translate it? And that's now captured in one single scenario. So I could do like, hey, how's it going? Try to be nice to AI, right? Because you never know when they're going to take over the world or steal my coffee.
Always,
Oh,
Peter.
talk about coffee. I'm going to take a little sip. So what I did here is telling the agent, like, you need to ask for a document or using a prompt, and I'm going to specify what kind of document it can use. Next to that, create a summary in 200 words. And once it's ready, I'm going to offer you to translate. So I'm going to grab my document and we could actually use that Microsoft financial report. I don't need to write a prompt anymore because the agent already has instructions. So in just a couple of seconds, now you saw that financial website. So it's like in a Word document, like 107 pages. Yep. Now I specified summarize this in 200 words. So I'm not going to count them, but I think it's close to 200. And then next it's like, hey, Peter, if you are satisfied with this summary, let me know in which language you want to translate this. And then instead of, again, me prompting like, hey, can you please rewrite this or translate this? It's now turning my instructions into action buttons. Now, do you speak any of those languages?
I do not.
But you recognize if I do German, you can tell me if it's, oh, it looks and sounds like German. There you go. So it's not looking at the document anymore. It's literally the initial summary that I approved, like this is all perfect, and now translated to different languages. So that's just, in short, what the agent is doing for me.
That's so fantastic. And just the speed, that's executing at is just amazing.
This is just cool. Looking at the time, making sure that we can answer quite some of those questions. At the start, you talked about some specific Netcom training offering for our watchers, our viewers. So can you share a bit more about that before we shift to the questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Netcom, we're fortunate enough to have been working with, over 4,000 unique enterprises in the last 12 months alone, offering help and support around AI, Copilot, and many other great Microsoft solutions. In this aspect, since we're running into so many situations and so many opportunities, we have learned so much from customers, whether it's building training for specific personas, or creating use cases that really support the learning and the understanding, and then even measuring the performance of the training. So one of the things that we're doing, Peter, is we're asking anybody that's interested to please take a minute to sign up and ask for and register for a quick AI skilling consultation. It will be a simple time investment that we can really come share examples of the work that we've done in many different industries with many different organizations and see if we can help those companies, get better and get stronger with using Copilot, whether it's, Copilot M365 or your agents as well. But there's so much more there, as I'm sure Peter. I'm sure whenever you're engaged in the questions that you get from learners, whenever you're talking about Copilot, it's always dabbling in those different areas, whether it's security, data, and just beyond. It's such a immense and massive landscape, and that's really exciting.
I summarize it as it's transforming productivity. That's like it's for every organization, every user, no matter if you're in like finance, HR, sales teams, training business like yourself. I think there's a use case for any kind of user. So that's what amazes me every single day about it.
Yeah, Copilot is absolutely this tool that it feels limitless. And and to your point, as each organization figures out how best this tool can help automate it and just give time back to customers, that's the biggest win, because we know that's the most valuable commodity out there. Peter, it looks like the chat is really firing up here. Let's take a minute and answer some of these great questions.
No, sounds good. And I would say, I mean, I got my environment ready. So if anyone wants to see something else in a demo, or we can answer a question using a demo, then more than happy to do that.
That's fantastic. So Peter, let's take a look at some of these questions that are coming in. So there's one great one here from John that's and he flat out asks, "Hey, what ethical concerns should be considered when using AI at work?" And I know I run into that in those business conversations, but for you as well, from a technical standpoint, what are you seeing, and how would you respond to John?
Well, so within like Microsoft, we do have, I would say, a pretty detailed description how we handle like the ethical part of AI apart from the technology itself. So it's called the Microsoft Responsible AI Framework, and it touches on different domains where, for example, we're like not integrating any bias. So if you start running prompts, then it obviously, like I explained in the presentation, you should try and be as specific as possible, but the outcome, like the prompt response, should not be based on like any racial information, not based on gender. So that's one. And then the other aspect, if you think about what we shared in the demos as well, so you have the Copilot like Pro Edition or the Free Edition Personal, and then M365 obviously comes with a grounding of the data, which also means that a lot of your corporate like data compliance is immediately integrated as well.
That's fantastic, Peter. And thank you for that. Taking that even a step further, John asked a question as well, just a little bit deeper. Um, when you prompt in Copilot, and we'll just say, M365 Copilot, when you prompt them, where does the data go? Like, how can they as a user be confident in that?
Yep, no, cool question. So in the presentation, I described it as like your data is your data. And what it means is that, again, first of all, we're not storing any information in your, like out of your prompts. Next to that, obviously, again, the M365 layer around it takes all your like corporate security into account. Your Microsoft Graph is technically the tooling behind the scenes that's going to look into like not oversharing information, because Copilot runs in the user mode, which means that if you run a prompt to, like what I did, find like Microsoft financial report information, it's going to look into my emails, my OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams meetings, and it's only sharing information that I already have access to. Like even if, like without Copilot, if I actually know where to find that information, I would still be able to open it. But we're not storing the prompts. We're not using it to train models. And why is that important? Because not all AI tools are handling it in the same way. So
Yep.
that could be an important one to emphasize.
Perfect. Moving right along, Peter. Another question I got here from a Tom. Tom's asking, as an enterprise, how do we avoid wasting time on the relevant features and really focus on the co-pilot that we can use day to day? I'm going to take this one. It's a good question. I know the work that we do at Netcom, it's all about making those training sessions, those coaching, those events about the needs of the customer and the needs of their environment. And I know we talked before about the low cost, the low barrier of entry in using Copilot, but we've seen time and time again, when you start understanding, hey, what's the best use case, what's the best example on how to use Copilot, that's where companies see all those efficiency gains and really start to see a return on that investment. So thanks for that question, Tom. That was great. Flipping through here, Quinn's got a great question. Given the AI generated content requires significant human refinement, how should organizations go about calculating that total cost? So Peter, I know an example in the our chat that we've created. I know there's a cost of every time it searches, but the gains we see are significant. How would you answer Quinn's question of that? Like, how do you calculate, or how do you see like the total cost of ownership?
Well, so like when I talk about Copilot in our workshops or sometimes even executive sessions, then obviously I would say the key phrase is like, oh, it's good. Your team, your employees will work more optimized. But what does it mean, right? Do you send them home at 4 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock? Do you like tell them, hey, you can take half a day off on like a Friday afternoon? So I would say before like even thinking about, and obviously there's a cost attached to it. But at the same time, and you could think like, okay, Peter, you're part of Microsoft, you use it every single day, so that might be a bit different. But I think just by looking at what is the process that we use, like, and I mean, the easy example I showed in the demo is like, well, I need to do research where, again, I used my Microsoft financial report, but that's just like find information about my customers. And again, it goes back to your M365 backend, where now you're already, just by running that one sort of more complete prompt, it's going to look into your totality of your M365 environment. And it's just going to gather information from all different places about like customer information. Like what I do for like my training workshops is, sorry, is like trying to obviously get as much information as possible from the customer to make sure that like we can tailor the workshops a bit. And I'm pretty sure like Netcom obviously does the same thing. But that's where I would say just finding those easy scenarios. And another part is as also like going back to the cost. Like if we talk about the cost of training, it's probably also trying to find out like, should we send everyone in a class where my take would be just, I think like obviously assuming that as an organization, you decide like we're going to use Copilot M365. I think like everyone in the organization who's going to use it or maybe even using it, they should at least do like a Copilot fundamental class to just understand the concepts, like what does it take to prompt, what does it take to find information, and just getting a little bit more comfortable with it. And again, also making sure that they understand that not all AI tools are handling it in the same way.
Yeah, that's a great point, Peter. There's some orgs that we're working with that just do the scale of the rollout, right? It's just time is when you start multiplying hours over thousands of learners, it's just, build significantly. And so there's programs like a Copilot Quick Start, and it's a 4-hour use case, persona case specific rollout that we do that we really see impact, right? We see users learning and understanding, and we build all those use cases out in advance. So we're making sure we're highlighting how companies want Copilot to be used in their organization, because that's really important. Now, Peter, there's an interesting one. This might be a tricky question to answer, but it's something we hear all the time. This question is from Carson, and it's all about the quality of Copilot's output is dependent upon the quality of the organization's existing data.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that garbage in, garbage out, right? So what is the most common data hygiene challenges that customers may face in deploying it? Like, what do you see out there?
Mm-hmm. Well, so it starts with, I would say, the details of the prompt. Like the example I shared, I mean, even in the public version, like, hey, describe my elephants, then obviously it's going to answer it. But at the same time, and that's where we started, like explaining a bit, like what is that large language model, that in the end, it's just providing you like the most accurate statistical answer, because it's going to analyze the keywords in the prompt. And then based on that, performing some, it's not doing a research, right? But looking at like out of my trained model, what is the closest answer to the question?
Yep.
And that's where like the example I always share with the 5-year-old kid, I think it's just so easy to understand that the baseline of generative AI is you ask and I'm going to respond. But once you get the concept that it's never going to be 100% spot on, that I think to me was like, that actually makes sense. Because if you like walk into, I don't know, the New York Library or any other place, not important, then you're gonna find information about, like in my case, like a Mustang 69, and you got 500 books. But like all those books have the same topic, but they describe it in a slightly different way. Where you might go like, well, this book is kind of useful. This book, oh my God, this is amazing. And then the third book is like, it's a bit too high level. So that's how I approach like explaining why it's not always 100% spot on. And then obviously like the baseline of having a good data set, like again, using M365 as an example, like a few weeks ago in a workshop, got a question like, well, we got our company like expense policy changed, but what if someone's on like a leave of absence for a couple of months and running a prompt, how can we make sure that the person gets the latest information? So that's where, again, you need to like manipulate the prompt a bit, where you could go like, hey, give me the latest information. So I would say the baseline for me is the more specific you are in the prompt, and obviously knowing that your data set is also like good quality, maybe high quality, then you should get a pretty good answer out of that.
Appreciate that, Peter. It looks like we just have one more time for one more question.
Sure.
Here's one. Do you see, and this is from Rebecca, do you see Copilot changing the skill sets organizations will prioritize in hiring and employee training?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I mean, there's this saying, right, where they said like your job won't be taken by AI, but it might and most probably will be taken away by employees actually having AI skills. So on that end, I would say, and expecting employees to, or like hiring managers to like really look into resumes and comparing candidates. Like,
Yep.
I mean, easy example, like I'm 30 years in the business, but let's say 20, 25 years ago, on your resume, you would identify like, I know how to work with a computer. I got office skills. I got experience with WordPerfect, which maybe half of you, the audience, have no idea what I'm talking about. But you could emphasize like, hey, I got more specific computer skills than maybe some of the other candidates. Well, now I think it's becoming a benefit if you can identify as an employee or a potential hiring candidate that you have those AI skills. Like, I'm using Copilot in my personal life. That would be a cool reference. If you go like, well, in my current job, I'm using like Copilot M365 or ChatGPT or any of the other ones. I mean, it's about highlighting that you do have that AI skill set. And I think that's going to be an important one. And then obviously back to training. I mean, Netcom, it's your business. So I think, again, what I mentioned before, that baseline fundamentals, I think that's like, as an organization, I would really like think about providing some budget for that for all employees.
Yeah, and appreciate that, Peter, and you're right, because we hear it over and over again. As you know, the tools continue to build in strength and capability and make them, individuals more efficient, right? It's requiring everybody to upskill and up their game. And it's something that every single one of us out here. That's why so many attended this event today, is just to learn more about Copilot and learn more about how it's impacting businesses and how organizations are getting better. That's where individualized learning is beyond critical, right? To understand where you are from a skill set and to be able to build upon that, even if it's a small little 15-minute increments. I know personally it's a challenge that I've taken. I quite honestly didn't understand it. I can remember, almost 2 years ago in November, the OpenAI coming out, and I'm like, don't get it. Seems like a toy, and then it just went off in my head. I was like, ooh, think about the advancements, think about the applications, to the creation of agents, and then how Netcom runs its business, right? How we engage with more efficiency with customers. And then I see that over and over again with so many different organizations and their ideas. And so that's just fantastic. And it's a great opportunity for all.
I love it. I guess that was clear. At least I hope that was clear.
Hey, so I'm going to ask everybody to please We're going to show some screens here real quick. There's going to be a chance for you to download, the event handout to get more information here. There's a bunch of great questions that we didn't get to, Peter. We absolutely want to make sure that we respond to those. So we have your information. We'll make sure we get out responses to all these questions. So thank you so much for that. So click on, do a scan here of the QR code and make sure you're downloading this event. And we have, a raffle as well. So we're going to be giving away, because this is all about coffee. And Peter, I heard you're a Dunkin' Donuts fan? If not,
well, yes. So the coffee I drink at home, it's like what Starbucks, it's on the screen, right? What Starbucks calls the slow drip. I just got the basic like Mr. Coffee machine, but then using Dunkin's. But when I go out, it's typically like Starbucks, I would say.
I do the easy button. I'm a K-Cup guy at home, and if you're from the Northeast, I love Wawa coffee. So anybody in the Philadelphia, New York, area, Jersey area, I know you know what I'm talking about. But we're going to give away a raffle here for Starbucks gift cards. So we're going to announce this on the LinkedIn channel. So please go ahead and enter for that as well. And finally, we're asking you to take advantage of some resources, right? From here, you can download our Netcom learning app, which has, hundreds of thousands of downloads already today. So you can gain access to this course. You can gain access to this webinar that will be recorded and any other information. So it's a great resource that we're making available at no cost to everybody here. And if you want to have a question about Copilot, and we want to have a conversation about Copilot or even coffee, please don't hesitate to reach out. Peter and I love to have these conversations. We'd love to connect with you, make sure we get your questions answered, and really, we can all learn from each other. So Peter,
thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the time here. This was fantastic. I enjoyed it. I think I'm a little bit, I've drank too much coffee today, but I really appreciate it. And to all of you that joined the event today, thank you so much. Do not hesitate to reach out to us. We'd love to help. And everybody have an amazing day. Thank you all.
Enjoy the weekend.